Hello, welcome to Just Got Played. I'm Steven, that's Erock, that's John, and today we're going to talk about our most anticipated games of 2024. So, what does that mean? Well, it needs to be published in 2024. Are all of your games, the guys on your list, games that were published in 2024?
That's a great question. If not, put it down below.
Um, in English, yes.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, I actually have two different lists here. I have lists of games that I've already played, but I am still really excited about coming out. And there's five games that I haven't played that I ranked, and but four of them are sort of like remakes almost. So, ah,
There's a lot of that. There's one I think that might be like from another country and being published in English for the first time next year. I'm
okay.
not 100% sure on it.
It there is definitely one of those that was recently announced that is pretty cool. So maybe that's what you're talking about. I don't know. We'll
Could
see.
be.
But yeah, so I got a list of five. My list was longer than five, but I got five that I'm going to talk about today, and then the three that I've already played as well. So is that good with you guys? Top five, sort
I
of.
Yep, I
have
got
five.
five.
I have five and two honorable mentions.
Not well, of course. You you always got to have those extras. I don't know. I mean, I got some honorable mentions too. Actually, something that is on not on my most anticipated list and isn't really a game, but is something I already have on pre-order. Is the Book of Adventures for Robinson Crusoe.
Well, why
So,
don't we start with his honorable list?
That counts. That's one for you.
nah, that's not one of mine. It wouldn't make my top 10, but it's something I've actually already, like I'm already going to be receiving, so that has to count for something, right? Is that what you can say for your honorable mentions?
Yeah, very similar. Yes.
Okay, well, go ahead. Hit us with some honorable
My
mentions. Why
honorable
not?
mentions. All right. So my first honorable mention is Madeira's Collector's Edition. This is basically an honorable mention because I don't think there's any change to gameplay here. It's the same game. It's just they're coming out with a fancy deluxe collector's edition for it. And
Veto. That doesn't count.
we got the upgrade. So like we're just upgrading our current version to when it comes out. But this has been years at this point. I think it's 3 years we're waiting on this, and supposedly it's coming out this year. So that, like I said, that's an honorable mention because it's not really anything new. It's
John,
just
John vetoes it. He vetoes your
It's off the
honorable
list.
mention.
Mute this part of
well,
the VOD.
well, then you have lost your honor,
Nice.
sir.
Did you have
Okay.
any honorable mentions, John?
No, there's a bunch I looked at, but it would be like 27 long of just like,
Yeah.
that could, but no, I just settled on to five that like I actually would really like to play and are coming out next year or this year, sorry.
All right, man. Well, why don't you hit us with your number five?
So my number five is a game you wouldn't expect me to be interested in playing because it is a co-op game, and I hate
What?
working together with other people. Teamwork just makes me sick. But it's really the concept that they're using for it and the theme that draws me into this. And my number five is Weirdwood Manor,
Oh,
and it is a like haunted house, and the house shifts. It changes over time. So like this corridor might slide over. It's like the house is constantly like moving around, and it's kind of a puzzle game of just like, oh, because what you do is you spend time units, and when so many time has passed, then the house shifts. So it's kind of like a puzzly, like, how do we best want to do this? How much time should we spend? Oh, that's going to move over here. So I think that's going to be a neat little puzzle that might make it impossible to quarterback because there's a lot of different options. Like, oh, well, don't forget about this corridor. And then the theme. Really, you can sell me a haunted house game a lot easier than just about any other type of theme. So you combine the really cool theme with the house changing over time and spending time units, and those are all things that interest me. So for the first time in a while, it's a co-op game that I'm actually looking forward to.
yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, things that can get me excited about a game. The designer,
Mhm.
possibly, is a thing, but theme more than
Yeah.
anything can get me, get something for me as far as anticipation goes, anyway. Um, all right, cool. Erock, what do you got for your number five?
My number five is a game that I first saw at Dice Tower East, and it was released in Portuguese under the name O Bom Do.
Yeah, it's a Brazilian game, right?
It is a Brazilian game, that is correct. It will be released this year by Arcane Wonders under the name Video Game Champion, and it is basically exactly that. It is a game about playing video games in the 90s. So, and like I'm a child of all that. I played video games in the 90s, so there's definitely a nostalgia factor there for me, but it just looked really cool, like a whole big mess of stuff going on a board, and quite frankly, it was kind of intimidating, and I'd never heard of it when I saw it at the convention, and it was like the day after we all went home, I would like looked it up and I was like, that looks awesome. I wish I would have played that on the hot games or whatever. So I am really looking forward to that one. It just looks super fun, and it kind of reminds me of another game that I like a lot that never gets to the table called Millennium Blades, which is a game about playing collectible card games back in the day. So I really like the working in of these things into board games. Kind of it's almost like that like Ready Player One, kind of like it just feeds my own nostalgia as I was growing up doing these things.
Did you see Arcane Wonders is also doing redoing Comic Book Hunters as a Marvel game?
I
cool.
did see that. Yes.
That'll
Yeah.
sell.
yeah, that'll sell.
So
yeah.
that's mine. Obamdo.
Yeah, I remember. So I was at Dice Tower East, and I didn't even see that game there. I didn't know about it.
It was like the very first hot game table. It wasn't on the shelf. It wasn't available. It was just
like,
glued to that
right
table.
outside the library, right there.
But for whatever reason, it wasn't until we did our Dice Tower recap video, when you mentioned it, and I was like, "Oh, that's what that was? That's what that was about?" Like, wow, okay,
Right.
I would have checked that out.
That's how I thought. I'm like, well, I wish I'd have known that. I would have checked it out, but I didn't. Here we are.
Yeah. All right. Well, my number 5 is coming from Thunderworks. Is it right? Because it's in that whole role player universe, and it's called Stonespine Architects. So it sort of fits in my wheelhouse. 1 to 5 players, plays in about an hour. It's basically simultaneous play because it's card drafting, right? But what you're doing is you're building, a dungeon, a labyrinth, or whatever. And you're just trying to build the best one. So I think maybe there's some blueprints out there or whatever that you're trying to score against. I don't really know, right? But just thematically, hey, drafting cards and building, a dungeon, being a dungeon master, basically, sounds pretty cool to me. And, I do like that role player universe. I like a lot of the games there. I mean, I like role player and I like cartographers. I do wonder, actually, though, if this is going to be the situation like, in role player, you created your character, but then they added an expansion where you actually do something with your character. So I wonder if in this game it's going to be like you build your dungeon, and then there'll be an expansion where heroes come to try to tear down your dungeon or whatever. I don't know.
Dungeon Lords, right?
yeah, or something like. I mean, sounds great. Or maybe that's in this game already, and I don't know.
I love that concept. I don't think anyone's nailed it yet, so I hope people keep trying to iterate on that design.
Yeah, exactly. I will try it just to see if they nailed it, and if they didn't, well, oh well. But yeah, pretty excited about that because they're not 100% hit rate from Thunderworks for me, but they're pretty good. So yeah, that's my number 5. All right, cool. Number 4, John, you want to hit us with number 4?
Yeah. So number 4, I recently played some Sagrada on the Dice Tower Cruise, and one of my favorite genres. I love how they have different levels of abstract. The first. Let's talk about Azul. In Azul, the first one is entirely abstract. You're just taking tiles, you're putting them down, you score them, and that was some people had. That's just like, I don't really know what to do. It's fully abstract. And then they iterated on that to the point where it got to what I think is the best one, which is Stained Glass of Centra, where it was far less abstract, but still puzzly. So you have that range of the games in that area, and I have all of them because it's different levels of abstract. So I do enjoy an abstract game. The problem is it's hard to get it to the table. All the way back to chess. Like, trying to get people to play chess, they're just like, I don't grasp the strategy of it. It's a game you have to be into to play. But there's one coming out called Shifting Seasons, and it is a abstract puzzle type game where you have 4 different regions and there's 4 different seasons, so the colors are each a different season, and you're taking tiles and like pushing them onto the board, and when you do, like Pac-Man style, it'll push another one off to that edge of the board. So it's like a spatial puzzle of sliding tiles around and trying to, get the best score you possibly can. But it looks really good. It looks interesting. And it's one of those kind of abstract games that I might be able to get to the table because I can trick people into playing it before they realize it's an abstract game.
How many players does it play?
4? I believe it's 4, yeah.
Yeah,
2 to 4.
Typical sort of Azul pattern there, right? Yeah. That's cool.
So
I
your
mean,
theme today is moving things, rooms that move,
Yes.
tiles that move.
My number
yes.
3 is all about moving. And my number 2. You're onto something, Erock.
Nice.
Excellent.
There's always a pattern like, oh, this is the year of the nature games, or
Right?
whatever.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, maybe what 2024 is going to be the year of moving games. We'll see. All right, Erock, what do you got?
For number 4, I'm coming in with Unconscious Mind. This ended up being kind of a big Kickstarter last year. It kind of came out of nowhere, really, and then all of a sudden it was there, and people were talking about it in a buzz, and I wasn't all that. But the more I looked into it, the more I feel like this really fits Tiffany and I's like just wheelhouse. It's a deep Euro game. It says, multiple rondels, worker placement. All right, I had to pull it up a second ago. Yeah.
Who
Worker
was the
placement,
artist on
engine
that? Is it?
building, multiple rondels, cascading effects, cascading effects. That's my jam.
Yeah.
Designer says, I don't know, Lascas, Johnny Pack, Yoma, Antonio Zax.
Yeah, who's the
Of
artist though
course,
on
it's
that?
Ian O'Toole,
Yeah, okay,
or
that's what I
whatever.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm wrong. It's Andrew Bosky, Vincent Durate, and Yoma Dutrate.
It's
I don't know.
Vincent Dutra- It's a lot of people as artists.
That's 3 people. Yeah, Andrew
Bosley?
Bosky.
Bosley?
Yep,
Oh, okay.
that is correct. But yeah, so the art looked super awesome. Like in the Kickstarter, it's like, man, this art looks really cool. The basic concept of this is like you're part of Freud's little inner circle, and you're like trying to advance these theories on, psychiatry and all that as the game goes on. And like I said, it's like
Oh.
cascading effects, which we love cascading effects. Like that's basically a lot of the games that we play. It's like, well, yeah, there's only 4 actions, but when you do this action, there's a sequence of 15 things that happens after you do this action. Things like the Gallerist, a lot of the Suki games are like that, where just everything you do just triggers and a bunch of other stuff that happens, and it's really enjoyable as a gamer, to get these like chain reactions of reinforcement for the
Yeah.
things that you're doing. So it just makes playing fun. I think there's a lot of times where these kind of games, they're long and they're complicated, but if you get that feedback of reinforcement a lot, you'll have a great time. Even if you don't really get it the first time through, and even if you got blasted by 50 points, you'll still walk away going, that was a lot of fun, because that feedback loop is so addictive. So I'm looking forward to that Unconscious Mind.
I heard the player tokens are the ego, the id, the super ego, and a cigar. You pick from one of those 4.
I
I choose cigar.
I have to tell you that I don't buy into any of the Freudian philosophy, so I wonder if that would hurt my enjoyment of the game. But
You a Jungian
probably
man?
not. More than Freud, sure. just about name it, and I probably think their philosophy is better than Freud, but whatever, that's fine. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't necessarily. I could probably just look past that and play the game. I don't know. It depends on how intricately it's woven in there. It's like, I don't want to play a board game about proving that the Earth is flat either. So whatever.
But what if it's a great game?
I mean, I'd play it, right? But
Right.
it would hurt. It would hurt it for me, right? Like I would just be mocking the game inwardly and probably outwardly during
Probably
the whole
outwardly,
game.
yeah. I know you. Yes.
Have you heard about the new combo of Freud and Oedipal therapy? It's where you say one thing, but you're thinking of a mother.
If it's a Samuel L. Jackson mother,
I'd watch that movie.
yeah. All right. So my number 4. Let me look here. I think this is also Andrew Bosley artwork. So there you go. Interesting. So this is a remaking of an old game. So back in 2008, a game called Metropolis was a Spiel des Jahres nominee, or recommended, I guess. Whatever. One of those. Recommended or nominee or something. It didn't win the Spiel, but it got mentioned. Right. It mentioned in the same breath as whatever won the Spiel that year. 2008 was so long ago, I don't know. But
Japan for
apparently,
the 7th time.
yeah, apparently that was a really good game to get that. So anyway, Roxley, which they make brilliant productions of games.
Did they do brass?
They did. They did
Yeah.
the new brass versions. They crowdfunded a game called Skyrise, and I looked at it and I was like, "Wow, this looks nice. This looks fun." but it was sort of expensive because it's a deluxe thing, and I'm sort of off the crowdfunding as much as possible. Well, not as much as possible. I still do a little bit, but not as much as I used to. And so, and also I was like, if you guys have played Foundations of Rome, right?
Yeah.
Like that game is just too big of a production for what that game is, in my opinion.
I agree.
Well,
Right?
I think if you unmarry the production from the game's not really enough to make it
They are
to the
doing
table.
that. There actually is a version.
Ah.
It's not Foundations of Rome. It's got a different theme on it, but it's the same game with a different theme and just like cardboard things instead of big
I mean,
buildings or whatever
overall, it's a
coming this year.
very basic, simple game. It's
Yeah.
just really fancy with the stuff.
Yeah.
I was worried that that's what Skyrise was, right? All these big figures and buildings or whatever, but it's I think it's a fairly simple. Spiel des Jahres recommended games are not the most complicated games, right?
Sure.
So, but it seems to have an interesting spatial auction system where like you sort of start an auction here and people auction other things around it or something, and it's area control or area majority or something like that. So, it's supposed to have a fairly novel auction bidding mechanism, which
And then when Raw comes out of the
thing that I
bag,
like.
you got to do another auction.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt it's a better auction game than Raw, right? So I did pony up for the deluxe version of Raw, right? Because I like that game so much, even if it is relatively simple. But
That's got to
yeah.
be, by the way, that version has to be the most overproduced to time played of a game in board game history. And I'm not complaining because I have it too, but it's so nice. And you sit down and play it for 30 minutes and you're like, I was like 1 minute per nice token that's on the board.
Yeah, but it's worth it.
It's so worth it. It's such a
I
good
don't know.
game.
I still think
Yeah.
maybe I would rather have the regular version because the box is so much smaller. But
Well, I know
don't
many
Yeah,
people.
we know how
played
you
it-
feel.
We played it over the weekend, and like 4 of the people at the table were trying to find one. So if if you're serious about that, let me know, and I'm sure
I
that
have
something can be arranged.
I have an in shrink deluxe edition of Raw that will be appearing in the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund charity auction when it launches here in a couple months. So,
So it'll go for like $1,300 probably.
well, whatever. I hope so. I'm just plugging the
Yes.
charity here, So, if you are a gamer in need, check out the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund and apply. But also, we have an auction coming, and you can donate stuff. So, anyway, it's just my little plug there, since you brought it up, not me. But back to Skyrise, it looks beautiful, but it was a big, expensive production, and I just, I didn't want to drop whatever $90 or whatever on something I haven't played, right? Maybe if I had played Metropolis, I'd be like, oh yeah, cool, I want to get this new shiny version or whatever, and I just hadn't. So I want to see it, I want to play it. I was hoping it was going to be at some of the conventions because these crowdfunding things, especially if I didn't back them, I have no idea when they're coming. I'm just waiting for them to show up. So every time I go to a convention like BGG Con, I'm like, is it in the library? Oh, it's not out yet. Whatever. So, but anyway, it's on my list. Number 4. I'd really like to check out Skyrise. All right, so let's move on to the top 3 now. Let's go the other way. Erock, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is from someone you've heard me talk about before. I have talked about this game in particular before, and that game is Molly House by Whirligig Games. I think this is actually a collaboration between Cole Worley and Joe Kelly, but I love Cole Worley Games. Cole Worley Games are known for being historically accurately uncomfortable, because that's very much what he does. He does not shy away from the dark side of something when he's making his game. For instance, it's something trade. That's about the heroin trade, basically, between China and England. But you're not it's not glorified because you're one of the people in England making this happen, and it's very clear that all you're doing is trying to establish wealth. You know what I'm saying? So there's a dark side to these historical games of his, and he does not shy away from them. And I just love that philosophy of being honest with a subject matter. He is also well known for Root, of course, which is funny because I give him props for being honest with subject matter, and then Root is basically a lie because Root looks like this cute little farm or woodland creature game, and it is a ruthless war game. But I'm a big fan of Cole Worley. Molly House itself is about basically the trans bi society that existed in London back in the day that really had to be underground, and they were basically called Molly houses. So this is what that game is about. And there is a possible trader mechanism because just like in real life, if you were an important person and kind of got busted doing this kind of stuff, then you were kind of under the government's thumb, and they would just tell you you had to rat everybody out and everything to save your skin. So that is an element in this game, as is his custom to put these uncomfortable things in there. So one of the people that you're, playing this game with might rat y'all out. That's the game. So I'm looking forward to Molly House. Big fan of Cole Worley. Whirly Games does awesome stuff. You should check them out if you've never heard of them.
Yes.
Good.
I was going to say the consequences of being gay in England. Go read the biography of Alan Turing sometime.
Yeah. Cole really is a great designer, and his games are great, but he's one of those designers that you need a gaming group that likes Cole Worley games.
Yeah, that's true.
You
can't
do
just
need
throw this
that
out in front of like mom and dad, and
yeah. You
know,
can't bring this to the
they're
game
not
store. And be like,
Thanksgiving
let's try this
games.
one out. But if you do get a group, everything from like John Company to Root, like all of that, if you have the right group, they shine some of the brightest in the entire industry. So if you feel like that's your group, definitely give Whirly Games a try.
All right, John, what do you got for your number 3 most anticipated?
My number 3 is a game all about moving. So what you do is you get in your go-karts and then you move. But it's a game called Dungeon Kart. And it's one of those games that seems like you could find it on the shelf in 2010 and just write it off entirely. But they have gotten a lot smarter about like, hey, we're not just going to make this a theme. We're going to make this a game. And it's actually a strategy game. So it feels like Thunder Road meets Mario Kart, and the fact that you're having a kart race, you're moving along, and then you have spells and abilities that can hurt the other players. So it's more of a tactical version of like a go-karting game that has a really fun theme. Do I think it's going to be great? Probably not. Like, it's probably not going to be the best game of the year, but the combination of the theme of it and how much I love Thunder Road, I'm just really feeling Thunder Road right now. So when that popped up, I'm like, you know what? I really want to give that a try to see if they do anything new with this formula.
Speaking of, I'm pretty sure Thunder Road's coming out with a reprint here very shortly, because I believe they announced another faction, and I would bet that you can get the whole collection when they do the whole thing.
You can, but they also will have a new expansion with it. And
Indeed.
It will allow you to play with a 5th player without the big rig. They're going to have purple player pieces. Yeah.
Alliteration.
Anyway. So, yeah. So that if you were listing expansions, I didn't list any expansions here, but that could be one of your most anticipated if you were interested in that. Neutral here listed some expansions on his list here in the comments. Expansion Extravaganza, I think, was one of his top 3.
Yes.
All right. Well, now that we're in the top 3, here's where I start talking about 2 games every time, right? Because I've got a game that I've already played. And there's a game that I played at BGG Con. In fact, all of these are games that I played at BGG Con. Is how I got to play them, even though they're not out yet. But this is also a game that I backed the Kickstarter. I rarely back Kickstarters anymore, but I have backed every Tiny Epic game ever. So I am getting a copy of Tiny Epic Cthulhu. It's got a spinner. Co-op games don't usually go over very well with my group. I'll probably play this one solo a little bit just to give it a whirl, but whirl spinner. But anyway,
The Cole Whirl.
People give them a lot of crap without ever physically playing the game about the spinner. They're just like, please don't do a spinner, do something else. And sure, there are more complicated ways to do it. And part of the reason it's more complicated is because the spinner points in 2 directions, and both things matter for your turn, right? So doing that with
I just want to know, how are you
dice,
going to get a spinner in a Tiny Epic box?
the pictures of it look pretty cool. It's like a Cthulhu
But it's already like you're just kind of sliding it as close as you can get, and now you're putting a spinner in there.
Yeah.
I just want to see an unboxing, honestly.
So there's a few co-op Tiny Epic games. There's Zombies and 2 versions of Defenders and Dungeons. I don't know, maybe there's more. To be honest, most of those I rate lower than the other games. But I played Tiny Epic Cthulhu one time and I really enjoyed it and I backed it. So if you like co-op games, if you like Cthulhu, check this out. 2 things I don't normally like, but whatever. I still
That's
enjoy
what
the
you
game.
said. You're like co-op Cthulhu Tiny Epic Games. And I'm like, oh, pass. Pass
Yeah.
hard.
Hey,
Hard
hey,
pass.
that's fine, right? Like if those things turn you off, don't play the game, right? Like not every game is for
I'm
every
not playing
person.
the game right now. I'm already on. I'm ahead of you on that.
Are you sure you're not playing it?
What the
Cthulhu.
hell? The spinner's moving. It's all about movement.
All right. Well, anyway, that's the game that I had already played. So for a game that I have not played is Andromeda's Edge. So I really like Luke Laurie games, and I think this is one he made with his son, maybe. And this is maybe a second edition or whatever, sort of a lot of commonality with Dwellings of Eldervale. And so I like Dwellings of Eldervale. And although I actually prefer a space theme to a fantasy theme, so this is a space theme, but it's got the whole, when your things die in a battle, you can still get a benefit. And I love the thing that you see in Luke Laurie games so much that what's normally just a wasted turn in a worker placement game where you're pulling your stuff back, it actually does stuff, right? You're returning it to your station, triggering up some sort of triggering engine that you've built there at the station. And this has all that stuff. And I saw on some threads on Board Game Geek where people were just like, this is just a cash grab reskin of Dwellings of Eldervale. And he's like, it's not. We worked on this game for years, right? So sure, there's a lot of DNA there. There's a lot of commonality there. I could see why somebody maybe wouldn't want to have both games. Maybe I haven't played this one, right? But to me, this is a new game, and that I would presume is just better because they iterated on that existing game. I did not. This was on crowdfunding. It was some big, silly, expensive production that I would struggle to get to the table, right? At 5 players, it's like 200 minutes or something, and it's relatively heavy compared to most of the games I play. So, I'm not going to be buying this game, but I really want to play it, and I hopefully will be able to do so at a convention.
Yeah, look, I need to know more because I
Hey,
feel like this is in a category that's really starting to annoy me in the hobby, and that is just putting out the same thing with a different theme or, well, it's a little bit harder now. Yeah, but it's the same thing. Now, I'm not claiming it is the same thing. I've never played this, but I've enjoyed Dwellings of Eldervale, and what I've seen of Andromeda's Edge is it's the same thing, more advanced. And like I said, I want to know because if they could have just given me this in the first place, then I want this in the first place. I don't want two versions. But if this is a result of what they've been working on since Dwellings of Eldervale, then I understand. I get it. Things have come out, you've made some changes, and this is better. Cool, that I get. I'm just saying, if this is like, well, we could have done either way, but we wanted to come out with a simple one first, and then we want to do, then that annoys me, man.
yeah.
I'm a big champion of Dune Imperium. I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but
You
I
do
was a
you.
big champion of Dune Imperium. They came out with 3 expansions. I loved all 3 of those expansions, and you know what they did right after that? They came out with a new edition, and I'm really mad.
Didn't they come out with a
Really.
big box and then a new expansion
Well, yeah. I mean, the
that
big
didn't fit
box
in the big box?
technically was like before 2 of the actual expansions. You know what I
You
mean? Like
see
it
that?
was.
Now I'm gonna go on a rant. If you're doing a big box, stop. Don't make any more stuff. The big box is
Has to
it.
be the
That's the
final
finality.
edition.
Yes, that is the final edition. It should say on the bottom of the box, it should say the end. Stop. If I love a game so much that I buy all the expansions in a big box and it's all sitting there, and you put another one online, I'm not buying that crap. I have finished that collection. It's over. I have the big box.
I haven't played Dune Imperium since the new one came out because I haven't played that one either, but it just annoys me. It's like, well, here's the same game but better. Come on, man.
I
Seriously?
haven't
Now I
played
gotta
Dune
buy another
Imperium.
one?
I haven't played Imperium since some jerk I was playing with ruined it for me.
I, Brandon?
To
I don't know.
a lesser extent. That's
So
just one of
yeah.
those games that we'll never agree on. I hate that game.
So basically, it all comes down to I agree with you. I'd very much like to play Andromeda's Edge. I'm just prepared to be very angry after I play it if it's
Yeah.
basically the same game as
Yeah,
Dwellings.
well, like I said, the designer has said that it's not, right? That it's
Well,
several years of iteration with, I think I said, I think with his son on the formula, and then in a completely different setting. So I mean, hey, a better version of Dwellings of Eldervale would be great because I like Dwellings of Eldervale. So we'll see. But it's
And
big
just
and
one other
inexpensive.
thing,
So
while I'm complaining, if this was a regular size game, that'd be one thing. But these are giant boxes.
you didn't have to buy the all-in on Dwellings of Eldervale, man, with the
Yeah,
sound
heard.
generating stuff.
But it's the same thing. Like if I bought all the stuff and you're like, here's the new edition, man, forget you. I'm not buying that crap.
Yeah, although, yeah, I think that's not what they did here, but yeah, right.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm not saying that is. I could fully be wrong on my initial impression of it, and it
Dune
could be a whole
Imperium,
new
that is-
game. Yes, I'm just talking about the practice in general, and I also take what any developer is trying to sell me something tells me. I'm taking that with a grain of salt too. So we'll see how it comes out in the wash, but stop doing big boxes and then extra stuff on the end of it, and stop putting dragons in a game and calling it a new game.
If it's there,
Oh, shots fired.
Shots fired.
I think this game is maybe coming in June. Not that games ever come on time anymore, but if it's there at Dice Tower East, we'll play it.
Yeah, I'm in then.
All right, cool. Well, let's move on to number 2 then. What do you got, Erock?
Okay, so I'm going to kind of out myself here. This will not be the only instance of this, but since Steven has given you an example of a game that he has already played, then I'm going to make an impromptu addition, a side number 2 for me. So my side number 2 impromptu addition is Stellar Drift. I didn't really put it on here because we've played a lot of it. Brian sent us the preview copy, and we have gone through a ton of that preview copy. So I didn't really put it on here because I feel like, we played that game, but nobody else really has. So really, that's a really fun game. It's $25 on the Kickstarter. You can get a fancy bag for $15, but for $25,
it's active right now. The project.
Yeah, right now, as we're filming, that is going live for $25. You really cannot miss on that game. It's fantastic. That is Stellar Drift. Look at our preview if you'd like to see more. But my actual number 2 game is going to be Clank Acquisitions Incorporated 2.
Oh, it's not your number 1. Okay.
It is not my number 1. That is correct. All right. I know most people would have thought so, but kind of a surprise, not really surprise. Surprise is not a surprise coming up as number 1. Okay. But my number 2 is Clank Acquisitions Incorporated 2. I absolutely loved the first version of this. I've said this before and I'll say it again. So far, out of all the legacy kind of games I've played, this is the most legacy game I've ever played. You're constantly stickering something, reading something, looking something up, and this affects that, and this affects that. If you want to be completely honest about it, it does muddy up the Clank formula a little bit because Clank is a relatively clean game. You get in and out of a game of Clank. It works really smooth. It's simple. This does muddy the waters because you are putting a ton of stuff out on the board, different places to go to while you're still trying to get down there, get what you need, and get out before the dragon kills you. But I was just blown away by how much content was in the first of these. The board has 2 sides. You're stickering both sides of the board, plus all the constant additions, the story, and everything going on. We had an absolute fabulous time. Clank itself is a fantastic little system, and I can't wait to get Acquisitions Incorporated too. Ta-da!
Did you play the Legacy version, John?
Yes. We almost killed each other, so we stopped playing it.
Oh, right, that's that game.
That's
you
the
didn't
game.
finish it, right?
Nope. I do love the game and what they did with it. The problem is they made it in a way where you're not working together, and it's really easy to ruin somebody's game, especially when it's your best interest to ruin somebody else's game. And it just got too adversarial, and we just stopped playing it. Because literally, like, you could be in the bottom of the dungeon trying to achieve an objective, and I'm like, well, I escaped, and you die, and you get nothing, and I open things in a box, and you're very sad. And if your group is not prepared to deal with that, it is not the game for you. But what they did in it is fantastic. The stories, the reading stuff. I just wish it was a little more forgiving, because you can really have a bad day with that game, and it sours the story, because you're just like, I just wasted an hour and a half when came out with nothing.
Wow, nice. Sounds like my job every day. Okay, John, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is all about moving.
Of course.
It's called Let's Go to Japan.
Oh,
where
Yeah.
you're visiting Japan, and it is you're literally planning an itinerary while you're in Japan. You're like, I'm gonna go do this. So it's kind of like action selection of what you're gonna set up, where you're going. You're building like a trip to Japan. And I love the theme of it. I love the just like, hey, let's go plan a trip to this. And I love Japan as a culture. So like seeing all that stuff on there, and I'm gonna go visit Kyoto and do this. Like I just really like that concept. It is also closed drafting, which I like, and you're kind of drafting like the stuff you're going to be doing. So it's got drafting, it's got a cool theme. It's by AEG, so it's going to be very easy to get. That now is a plus to me. It's not a Kickstarter exclusive for $250 that you had to back 6 years ago. It's an AEG game that you're going to be able to buy off the shelf if you want it. Cool theme, closed drafting. Just love everything about it. So that's my number two because it looks really interesting and like a unique set of mechanics.
I
And
wasn't gonna.
just a side note to that, it's nice. Don't get me wrong. We are those people that like get all the deluxe stuff, get all the little toys, get all the little stuff for every game. But you know what's nice is when you play a game with people and you say you can get this game at the store.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so many times I'll play a game with people and they're like, "Oh, I really love this game," and I have to look at them and go, "Well, you can't have it."
Yeah.
You
Or
know,
you're never
like
getting this version. I mean,
I've,
there's a
I've,
there's a worse
yeah,
version that you
yeah,
can get
like
or
you could buy this if you want the poor edition. There's like scraps of paper with names written on it. I wouldn't recommend it.
right.
Like it's really hard because you're just like, I love this game. I spent this money on it. It's deluxe, and you show it to people. They're like, that's really cool. I want to get that. And you just have to be like, oh man, well, unfortunately, and no matter how nice you say it, you come off like a jerk. Well, you can't really buy it. This is only for cultured people.
Right.
It's just a tough conversation to have. So my favorite thing about board games is sharing games that I like with other people and seeing them enjoy it in the same way I do. So when you have to cap that event off where everyone had a great time and been like, well, you can't buy this game, it's terrible. So I'm not giving bonus points to games like AEG games and stuff that like you can buy this game and you don't have to have known about it 2 years before it was ever in stores to get a copy.
I agree.
This was number 6 on my list. Actually, just missed my list. So
I
yeah.
thought this might be if we had one crossover, I thought this was going to be it.
Yeah, it was really close. And I watched a playthrough of it back. They were running a Kickstarter campaign for it, so I watched a playthrough of it, and I put it on my list as a game that I probably am going to buy, and put on my shelves. But I'm sort of in the camp for wait for it to come out and actually play it before buying it now. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully at one of these game conventions or the game store or something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, my number 2, again, I've got 2 here, right? Because I've got one that I've played, and the one that I've played is from a local game designer, but I got to play it. I flew all the way to Dallas to play it at BGG-Con, even though it's a local game designer. So this is coming, again, from Arcane Wonders, which I think we've mentioned here a little bit, but Mihir Shah, the local... Or is it Mihir? Sorry if I'm getting that name wrong.
Mahir.
Yeah.
Hey, Mahir.
So he's made this game called Raas, A Dance of Love. And it's a dice drafting game essentially, but there's this complicated gear system and very colorful dice, and you turn the thing in the middle and it has all the dice spinning around, and that's sort of emulating these Indian dances. So there are all these cards with these dances on them that you score points in different ways, and there's like QR codes on them so you can scan them and go see a YouTube video of people actually performing that dance.
That's
these
cool.
videos from India. At one level, it's just sort of abstract. Get the right color dice, put them in the right place, pair these cubes with these sticks that are colors, etc., whatever. But then, so it's got that sort of abstract mechanism thing going on. But then the theme that's draped over it is actually pretty cool. And the mechanism of this wheel that you turn, it's like a more impressive version of Tzolk'in, like that cool gear that you turn in Tzolk'in.
Yeah.
Well, this has got one that spins around the dice, and then, so anyway, I played it and I had a good time with it, and it was just prototype components, and I still thought it was really cool. So I'm sure the actual production version will be even better. And then we've played stuff from him before, so he's a solid designer. So
Yeah.
so the game is solid. So definitely check that one out. I'm pretty sure that one's coming out this year from Arcane Wonders. I think that one's just going straight to market. I don't think it's doing any crowdfunding or anything like that.
So, I have a non pun intended thing. that this brought up. Why has nobody built a better mousetrap? And that I mean like the Rube Goldberg thing, and just make one that actually works. How in like the 30 years since that came out has nobody said, you know what, let's build a better version of this?
Well, that sort of segues into my number 2 most anticipated game in that, boy, if somebody was going to build a better mousetrap, what company would you think would be making it?
Acme.
Restoration Games.
Yeah.
Acme.
They don't.
Come on, Restoration Games would take Mousetrap. They would make something that was totally Rube Goldberg the game, but then it would actually also be a game that was fun, right?
Restoration Games is doing things that I didn't think were possible. Honestly, just taking old dusty games that you're like, there's no way you can make that good, and making it a modern game that's better than most other modern games. It is crazy how well they're doing with these designs.
I loved Mousetrap. I loved it. I played it over and over again when I was a kid.
I never played it, but
it's fun. Like,
but
because you
Mousetrap,
got to get all the way to the end and then you set it off. You're like, it's a build.
Yeah, it's awesome. It has a
I
payout.
heard that it had a tendency to not work right.
Well, it's a
Hey,
90s
if you're a
board game.
good builder, you can make it work.
It works better than Monopoly.
It's-
I'll tell you that much.
It's like the old, like the old cartridges where you had to like blow in the cartridge. Like you just had to know how your game fit together right, and you can get it to work.
Well, my number 2 is not Mousetrap, though. It is a crossover with Neutral, who put his in the chat. It is Crossbows and Catapults, Fortress War. So, it's funny. I made my list, was ready for tonight. I walked out of my office, was doing some work here at home. I walked out of my office. My kids were playing Crossbows and Catapults on the floor out here. The old one. My old one from the 80s that I still have.
And you're like, who let you back in the house?
Yeah. It's if a game can, one, last that long, right, without getting pitched, and the kids can enjoy it, and like I mean, I'll still play it with them. I won't pull it out and play it with another adult. I wonder about Crossbows and Catapults Fortress War, though. Is that going to be a game that I would actually enjoy playing with another adult? I don't know. Probably not, but I don't care. I'm going to play it with my kids. And if you look at it, it's got they did some things to make it a little more gamer palatable, right? They removed the rubber bands and added springs. So now it's a little bit more of a game of skill.
Now someone's going to lose an eye.
than luck. Well, I don't think they turbocharged it or anything, But maybe with a Kickstarter add-on, you can get a V8 engine to shoot your catapult. I don't know. But, like there's all these different weapons, but they were tweaked so that you can be a little more skillful with them. And they've given you a lot of different ways to build the castle. The castle's sort of different. I think instead of sort of building a square, you build like a wall or something. I don't know, but I think it's going to be fun. I think there's some extra stuff in there that maybe like some cards that activate powers or something like that. May be a little over the top, but I don't care because I just don't have to play with that if it doesn't really fit. But I don't know when this is coming. Maybe this summer. But this is another one of those where I was like, I'm off the Kickstarter bandwagon. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to wait for things to come out. And then, Crossbows and Catapults from Restoration Games. Well, just this time I'll click. Yeah,
just this once.
Yeah. So, you got me. The guy who hates backing Kickstarters. I got this one. And Restoration Games is stuck on the Kickstarter bandwagon. They won't be going anywhere else for their crowdfunding. So
it's unfortunate. I mean, I think that's why Thunder Road was as delayed in impact as it was, because the whole Kickstarter thing. But it's a great game, and they're making more of it. So if it works, it works. They're killing it, and just about any game they put out now, I'm already half interested in buying just from their name alone. So they're doing something right.
Yeah, well, we'll see them again in 2025 with Mousetrap. So
I will back if Restoration Games updated Mousetrap Legacy. Hit me with it.
Awesome.
I'll buy the deluxe edition.
Like the trap keeps getting more complicated every time you play it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be awesome.
And then like the rats are solving it, so you gotta like throw a wrench in there.
Oh my goodness. Please do this. Please.
Somebody get me John Restoration on the phone right now.
All right. Before you guys go too far off the rails, let's move on to our number ones. All right.
Sounds good.
Erock, what's number 1 for you, man?
Okay, I do have one honorable mention left, so I'll bring that up real quick. My last honorable mention is ISS Vanguard, which is an Awaken game, or Awaken Realms game, which, if you know what that means, it means it's giant. It's giant.
Mm-hmm.
This is this is very much a campaign style game in that there's a lot going on. Like you have a whole book just about your ship, and then there's also like all these explorations and all this other stuff going. It is a giant like galaxy adventure kind of campaign game. And it looked really cool. I'm always intrigued by Awaken Realms games. They seem to put everything into their games, and I mean that both in a good and a bad way, because it feels like they pour their entire hearts and souls in there, and then also throw all the kitchen sink and everything else in also. I'm kind of this is an honorable mention for me for two reasons. First of all, because it's also intimidating because it's giant, and I know it's giant because it got here like 3 days ago. So that's the other reason it's an honorable mention, because we just got it anyway. So I don't know how anticipated it is at this
You're
point.
anticipating playing it?
Yes, but probably not soon, as we try to get through the backlog to get some other like complicated campaign game, you know. So there's that. I don't know. It might be fantastic. I don't know. It'll probably be a while till we get to it. It's just so big. But my actual number one game, not only have I played before, but it is absolutely one of my favorite games. And it is, quite frankly, nothing but a straight reprint. But my number one is El Grande. Please give me El Grande Black. Please give me my El Grande back. I made a mistake. I sold mine years ago because I was just having a hard time getting it to the shelf, or getting it to the table rather. And ever since then, this is my one regret. Like, of all the games I've gotten rid of, no, why? Did it already arrive?
It's out.
Oh, cool. Well, then I'm gonna go to the store and get one.
Bye, Erock.
Because I looked and saw like, yeah, there's pre-orders, but it's just going to general distribution. So I figured, well, I'll just go get it at the store when it comes out then.
Yeah,
so awesome. Well, then I'm gonna go get one because I love it. I love El Grande. I'm not gonna get rid of it. Like I've learned that lesson. But you know how it is. Like there are a lot of games have gone through our collection. A lot of games. And every once in a while you catch a pang. You see somebody playing something that you gave away and you're like, yeah, that was a good game. But it's never really like, oh, I should have kept that one. That's my El Grande, man. It is so good. It is so good.
I will tell you, this new version has been getting a lot of praise for being a decent component quality game at a low price, right? Because you expect somebody to be like, I'm going to remake El Grande as a $100 deluxe edition.
Yes.
But instead,
as a $100 edition, the deluxe edition would be $200.
Yeah, but instead, this is like,
yes.
I think I ordered it from Game Nerds. I haven't received it yet, but I ordered it. It was like $32, right? And it's
on pre-order,
and it's decent, right? It's the components are nice, what you would expect from a board game. It doesn't have any of the extra cards, expansion stuff from the decennial edition or anything like that.
Which, quite frankly, I had the decennial edition. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like we played back in the day. I played a ton of El Grande. Never once did we put any kind of expansion in it at all. Not one time ever. Because that game is so beautiful and perfect as it is. We just never felt the need to
I will tell you, if you think the old game is beautiful and perfect, then you might be in the camp of people that are slightly upset because they tweaked a couple of the cards. So it's not exactly the same game. You probably won't even notice. We'll see how it plays. But
I probably won't even notice. Exactly. This version's more colorful, so I think that's going to work in its favor as well. The last one was basically 3 different shades of brown and some cubes. So they upgraded the look. And at the end of the day, though, it is 99.7% exactly the same game that I loved from my past, and I want it back. So I'm going to go get me El Grande.
I played the Burgundy Deluxe Edition, and I prefer my $27 copy. Thank you.
Really?
Which one? The special edition that came out a couple years ago?
Yes, the big one, but without the plastic tiles. The tiles were still cardboard.
The acrylic tiles is where it's at. That's basically why I got that version. I mean,
well, but here's the problem. On the tiles themselves, they write on the back of the buildings what they do. But if you have the acrylic sets, it's not written on the back.
You are absolutely correct about that.
Which is very unfortunate.
But it's like 10 times prettier. So
I got the big, fancy, expensive acrylic version of Metro, and I got rid of it and kept my old version of Cable Car because it just wasn't
I'm
good.
A simple man.
Sometimes the acrylic games are good, right? Like I have the acrylic version of Kohaku, and I mean, the regular cardboard version is great, but like I would never want to downgrade, you know.
The only one
But
I'm sad I don't have is Copenhagen acrylic. Those are great.
oh yeah, you can still find that occasionally. People are
Yeah.
selling those. All right, John, what's your number one?
Cool.
My number one is the only game on my list about not moving. It's stationary, and it is a weird sounding game called Charcuterie. It is literally about building a charcuterie board,
Really?
and it's tile drafting and set collection. So like you want certain things to be on your plate at the end, and it's also got the mechanic I wish they'd use more of I cut you choose. So it's very much like New York Slice, like you're setting stuff aside, and the other people are drafting. I'm gonna draft this, and you're building your charcuterie board with it. So the theme's neat. It's a beautiful production. It's got I cut you choose. It's got drafting on it, and it gets 2 to 6 players. That's another thing I'm giving a big bonus to, of just like, hey, now that I can play 6 players in a game, I'll prefer this over a 4 one. So it's got a lot of stuff going for it. It looks really interesting. And all these games are pretty close, except for the 5. Like my 1 through 4 is really close. So this is one and kind of like, hey, I got to pick a first one, but it does look really good. And I think it might be a game of all the games on my list that catch on this year is like, oh, that's a really good game.
Who's publishing it?
3WS.
Oh, I know that name, but I don't know why. So
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the other stuff they've done, but yeah, looks really interesting.
all right, cool. Well, let's see here. Neutral had something I didn't even know was coming out listed as his number one. What was it? Zombicide White Death. I don't really follow Zombicide. So
Yeah, I don't follow the Zombicides
There's like 12
either.
of them.
Yeah, there really are. Do they do
Haven't
one
we
every
said
year?
all we
Or
need to
maybe
say
they
about
don't.
Zombicide?
All right, well, I really can't say a whole lot about it anyway, even if I wanted to. All right, well, but again, I've got 2 games, of course, at number 1. There's the number 1 game that I've already played, really looking forward to getting a copy of, though, and then the number 1 game that I haven't played, sort of. So the first game, the game that I played, again, at BGG Con, is Galactic Cruise. So Galactic Cruise is, it's sort of a heavier, thinky worker placement game. I mean, I don't know if it's heavy, but it's heavier than the stuff that I normally play, right? And it's longer, right? It's going to take more than a couple of hours for 4 players to play, and it only goes up to 4. So those
Keep
aren't
talking.
things.
Heavy, long. Keep going.
Yeah, no, you're going to like this game, right? This is in your wheelhouse, I think. So, but the theme of it is you're building these rocket ships. So you're getting these different sections of rocket, right? Like this is maybe the video arcade or the whatever. This is the master sleeping room or whatever, and you're building these sections in your rocket, and then there are 3 different types of tourists that go on tours, and so you have to launch your rocket with tourists, and they do things, and you collect stuff for doing that. And that's sort of thematically what you're doing. And one thing that I thought was really interesting is I tried a strategy of doing a lot of small launches, small rockets launched many times. And I was running away with the game and then trying to trigger the end conditions while I had run away with the score. And one of the other guys I was playing with had built massive rockets. And so he spent all this time building massive rockets but not getting points, but then he started launching and it was like catching up and catching up and catching up and catching up, and then he nipped me at the end, right? So but I love that kind of game where there's 2 totally different strategies, and there's probably more than that, right? There's middle ground, whatever. 2 different strategies that still ended up close, and it was sort of a race at the end. But it's a worker placement game, and it's a worker placement game where you can block people out of spaces, but you have this own private board, and on your board you want to remove these, they look like gears. Because they allow you to unlock things on your board, like the ability to have more oxygen or fuel or water or whatever, the things that you need to launch bigger rockets, longer trips. And you put those gears on the board, and they allow you to sort of connect these worker placement spaces so that if you place next to one of your gears, you can actually trigger actions from the other space, even if it's occupied. So there's that mental puzzle. Like there's a lot of little things going on here, but I didn't find it overly complicated. I think there was... I think just the iconography was pretty good, right? On the sort of like guide thing that I had, like here's what you do when you launch a rocket, and here's what you do on your turn, right? Ever, so I could just sort of follow along. Erock, man, you got to check this out. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah, I'm just now starting to catch a little buzz on this game. I have a feeling this probably would have been on my list if I had started hearing about this game a couple of weeks ago. This would probably be on my list, but it's really just starting right now. And everything that I've heard, seen, read, whatever, it just seems like, yeah, it's right up my alley. So I'm looking forward to giving this a shot too, basically without knowing anything.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I liked my one play of it so much. I asked the publisher if they'd send over a prototype copy so that I could make a video. So I'm going to be. I think I'm getting a copy, and then I'll make a video and then send it on to the next person, who wants to try it out, a prototype copy. So hopefully that'll be coming to the channel here in the next month or so. They're going to be having some crowdfunding campaign. I don't know if it's Kickstarter or what. Oh, and and the version I played didn't have a lot of the nice artwork I've been seeing since, because I think this is Ian O'Toole.
I believe that's
Yep,
correct.
it is
Yes.
Ian O'Toole.
He's a busy man.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
So, but that's the game that I played. So, the game that I haven't played, asterisk, that I'm really looking forward to. I said there was a theme for on these for me, right? Like, Skyrise was sort of a reworking of an old game. Andromeda's Edge is a reworking of an old game. Crossbows and Catapults is a reworking of an old game. Well, coming this year, I think at Essen, I think is when it's projected to come out, although it's not listed on BGG as a 2024 game. Anyway, is Kraftwagen Age of Engineering. So,
If I knew that, I'd guess that's your number one right away.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't show up on a list if you're searching for it, so you just have to sort of know that
You're like
it's
the
coming.
only one I've ever heard talk about Kraftwagen. So
Well, there's a loyal following, and obviously Matthias Kramer or Matthias Kramer, I don't know how to pronounce names. Again, he's a famous game designer in his own right. But this is not one of his games that gets the most buzz. But there are things that I really like about this game, and other people really like about this game. But there's one thing that a lot of people are a little soured on about this game. And so they decided to rework this game, which is why it's a new edition and not just like a reprinting of it. So in the old game, the original Kraftwagen, there was like, I don't know if they're called research tiles or something like that, right? Two of them come up, and when it's your turn to take a research thing, you choose one of those, and then the other one goes away, and then two new ones come up. So just luck, right? The thing that I really need to be improving the body of my cars, is not there. Or two sort of mediocre choices, and then you take one and clear it off, and then two awesome choices come up for somebody else, And so it just felt sort of too lucky for the amount of strategy in this game, right? So they've replaced that. They've taken that out, and they have some other kind of research track thing that they're doing. Now, that might be more balanced but more boring. I don't know until I play it, but I will definitely give the game a shot, because there's a lot going on in this game that I really like. The whole thing about being cutthroat, about putting out the passengers and setting the prices on your cars and undercutting other people. I mean, other people can just be better than you, right? They can have better cars with, the main things that determine a car typically are the body of the car or the engine in the car, or there's also the sort of customer service, the number of people that you devote to sort of servicing the car. But you could undercut all of those with just putting out a cheap piece of crap car. You could build Yugos, and people go buy your Yugo instead of any of those other cars, and they just sit there unsold, So there's that whole, thing about, I got to get these buyers out, but then I got to get the cars out for these buyers again, and then I got to price them right, and then, and meanwhile, you can be doing other things like racing around the track to get points, or trying to achieve certain objectives before other people to score those points for doing certain things. So, and then of course it has what maybe is my favorite mechanism in games, which is that time track mechanism, right?
Yep.
Where, how far do I want to jump ahead to get the thing that I really need so nobody else snakes it out from under me before my next turn. So, I love all of that about it. I do wonder if they have done anything about this. This game was a little awkward typically in a 3-player game, because typically you do get somebody who's sort of focusing on engines and somebody who's sort of focusing on body, right? And so then if you have a third person who, instead of doing one of those other things like price or customer service or something, decides to then also focus on engine or focus on body. So you kind of have two people competing, and the third person's like over there counting their money. Like so there's that sort of weird thing that can happen in a 3-player game that I've seen happen a few times. So I wonder if they've done anything to address that, or it's just like play better. I don't know.
That always happens to me, by the way. In these games, I'm like, you know what? I'll focus on engine. The third player's like, I'm going to focus on engine, and then I'm fighting that guy the whole game.
Yeah,
it happens so often.
Well, and part of that might change just because of what I said about research, right? Because you might say, all right, I'm doing engines. Then it comes to my turn. I'm like, oh, look, the next thing for me that makes sense is the research action. And, oh, look, engines are available in the research market. I'll just take that, It's like, well, so you just got screwed by luck rather than, me particularly.
Rather than malice.
Yeah, malice.
I'll take RNG over malice any day. I usually get the latter, though.
Yeah. So, anyway, this is probably less of an update than, I talked about all these games that are sort of reinventions of older games. This one is probably less changed than any of the others, but I don't care. I mean, I absolutely love Kraftwagen. It's probably in my top 10. I don't know. I have to go back and look at my top 10.
Can they Englishize the voice or the title? We're just going to call it Car Make.
Well, it is interesting because the original Kraftwagen was set in Germany, but this one they have set in North America.
But they still kept the German name. Interesting.
Yeah, it's Kraftwagen Age of Engineering. So I sort of get that. I mean, I think they're...
Well, it's a brand.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that own the old game, and I think those people will be interested.
A lot. There's some people that own it.
There's more than one.
There's a few people that own it. Steven has 7 copies and 7 burner accounts for BGG.
Where's the stats here? How many people on BGG have owned up to owning this game? Oh no, their stats are broken. It says 0.
Oh, it's funny how that works. It says 0,
which is not true. Oh no, wait. No, sorry. I'm looking at the new one, which isn't out yet. Yes, 0 people own that one. That is correct. Let me look at the old one. Almost 4,000 people own it. Right? So
3,900 of which are subsidiaries of Steve Corp.
Yeah. But I'm just
Steve
saying,
Corp, bringing you everything.
If you can get half those people to buy your new version, right? Like that's just for slapping the name on.
Oh, it's a good thing. I was just taking umbrage with you said a lot of people owned it.
Yeah. Hey, 4,000 people is a lot in our
3,000 of those people forgot it's on the shelf. They're like, oh, this is still down here.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know why this game doesn't get more love. I mean,
it's a really good game. I honestly don't know why it's not more popular.
Yeah, Erock, have you played it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I've talked to
you. If I did, it was a really long time ago, so I'm gonna have to say no.
Yeah. All right, well that was
but I would like to. Put it on
the list.
Put it on the list. It probably was on the list. It's probably one of the original games on the list.
I've talked about this game enough times. I talked about this game so many times that the publisher of the new version started talking to me on BGG.
I feel like I owe you one.
So Steven, what we call those are cease and desist letters. He's not really talking to you.
I feel like this is your Koleshka, so like yeah. I should have to get this one because I talked about Koleshka so much that you went and got one. So
I used to give this out like candy because Miniature Market, it was way over.
That's what 4,000 people have
or something, right? Because Miniature Market used to put it on sale for like $12 regularly, yeah. And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna throw an extra copy of that in there, get free shipping or whatever, and give it away as a gift."
The local orphanage is like, "We're glad you're getting gifts for the kids, but stop with the Kraftwagen."
Yeah,
but on the bright side, they're all turning into engineers, so you got that going.
I literally have given away probably more than 10 copies of this game. But I don't care. I spread the love of the things that I like. So.
I don't know how that makes you feel because I've known you for a long time and I don't have a free $12 copy of Kraftwagen.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to give it to you. You got to come play it with me. I got to get
that's a great point.
To play it with me.
That's great leverage. If I'm ever like, I wish I could play. There's only one place to go. Steve Co.
I'm cornering the market.
Yeah.
By the way, any publisher, if you will feel like sending me a cease and desist letter, I will frame that and put it on my wall. like that's when you know you've made it, right?
Remind me to offline with you after this, but someone came up to me on the Dice Tower Cruise and they're like, "Oh man, I really love that Murder on the Cosmic Express game," and I'm like, "Stop talking to me. I don't know you."
Yeah, I don't know you. That's funny. All right, yeah, we'll have to talk about that offline because I probably know who it is because there's only like 3 people in the world that actually like that game, right? So,
It's about the same number of people that own Kraftwagen.
yeah. All right, John, did you have any honorable mentions or go backs?
No, when I do a list, I stick to the format and I don't come up with BS on the side. All right.
Oh,
Well, that
I'm a
sounds
stickler.
boring.
I'm a stickler. No, I didn't see anything else that I felt like was worth mentioning over the other 50 games. And I'm like, it could be good.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of things on here. I mean, I could have done another 10 or 12 or whatever. Oh, and yes, of course, sorry. Our entire list is invalid because nobody mentioned Wormspan.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's a brand new game.
I think I
Stand
already
by.
gave my rant about things coming out that are exactly the same as other things.
I called this out by
This
name
one
as-
is different. Come on.
Yeah, it has dragons
yeah, it
instead
has
of
dragons.
birds.
It has different mechanisms. So
It got rid of the dice. That's it. Which I'm a fan of. Don't get me wrong, but it's not worth. I have Wingspan. I have the expansions. I love Wingspan. There's not enough in there to make me
Yeah.
want to buy Wormspan.
my rant, which I will make a video on at some point, is that there are a lot of really good games that people then decide, let's make a more complicated version of it. And then I hate that. And not always, but most of the time I hate that because I like the original game.
Well, they
I like
usually lose the
simplicity.
elegance. Yeah,
And
exactly.
so I am worried. I'm worried that's what's happening with Wormspan, right? I don't feel like it's a cash grab. I like the dragon theme. I just feel like Wingspan as a game doesn't need more complex mechanisms in it. I like it because of what it is. So anyway, I don't know. I will reserve judgment until I play it. I will play it at some point, probably.
I
would
think
assume
when you
so.
get like us and you have multiple shelves of games, stuff like this, you look at your shelf, you're just like, it's not worth having this on the same shelf as Wingspan when I have to call games regularly just to make sure my shelves aren't overflowing. So once you get jaded, old, and shelves full of games like us, it's just like you're just like, get out of here with that stuff.
Yeah, and then
But it's
instead of-
really not that big a deal.
and then instead of playing them, you get on YouTube and talk about them.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, get out of here. Go play some games. I'm Steven. That's Erock. That's John. We're from Just Got Played. And thanks for joining us tonight.
Bye.
Have a beautiful time.
Beautiful time.